Good morning.
Morning.
We're back.
Yeah, I don't know where back to, but it's been a while. It's been a couple of weeks, isn't it?
It's been a while, yeah.
By the power of YouTube, though, it looks like it was just last week. Right?
You see, it's all smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, it's all shit.
So here we are, 2022, back again.
Yeah, just different date on the page.
Yeah.
Everything else is the same.
Back in the engine room.
Nearly died of COVID.
Oh.
Ill at Christmas. Take 2 weeks off, they said, at Christmas. Spend 10 days of it stuck in your house, lockdown. So, yeah.
It's a nightmare, dude.
I know.
But all good now?
All good. We're back. Yeah.
I'm just going to move back a bit.
Sorry, can't catch it.
So, what are we looking at today?
So this is a 650S cylinder head, and we're just going to start stripping it down.
Okay.
So we'll take cams out, we'll take the lifters out, we'll show you how the lifter actuation works and how the shims work, and then whether we have time in this video or whether we bump it to another video, we'll measure valve installed height, spring free length, and then the spring pressures for both inlet and exhaust, so we know what spring pressures are. So yeah.
Sounds good.
I know, I thought so.
So some more McLaren goodies.
Pretty much, because McLaren sell.
Seems to.
I know, they do quite well, don't they?
Yeah.
That or Guy Martin chat. What else we had? Yeah.
I think we need Guy Martin in a McLaren, and then that's it. That's
Or just let's just get Guy Martin down here building engines. He's engine builder. He could build it. We'd never get any work done. So yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good.
So where do we start?
At the top, they're ARP. They're aftermarket bolts in these because this is a race car head. So they're ARPs, double hacks. So we've already started to do some, but we just back them off slightly and then spin them out. Now you just got to make sure you take your caps off in the right order so you don't flex the cams, because obviously some valves are actuating and some aren't. So yeah, we just need to we'll take this joint one off and then we can do each individual cam then. So the first cam cap is joint between the two, or is shared between the two cams. So we'll just pop this one off and out of the way. So this is the one that is the variator end. It's a little bit tight on dowels. Just watch your hip, mate.
Oh.
There we go. So you can see here, look. This is now where the oil pressure's fed into the cam to feed the variator. So then it's pushed then down into the variator, which does your cam timing, your variable cam timing.
Yeah.
So that's oil pressure. A lot of them are like that. Even the R8s are like this. They have seal rings, but yeah, that's how they pass the oil into the variator, which is a cam gear on the end. So yeah, it's pretty common way of doing it now, but it's pretty cool. So the oil pressure will come up through the head, and then it's sat each side of the variator, and then by using the solenoid that sits in the top of the head, you can control the pressure in each gallery, so you can advance or retard the cam. So now they're all numbered. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So cam caps on everything really, if they're not bearinged, so if they don't have bearings on them. These aren't. These, you can tell there's oil. You get oil stuck. So there's no bearing look. It is the material itself. So you've got to be super careful about where you put the cam caps in. So we get a lot of people turn up sometimes, they've maybe damaged their cylinder head or got a pickup in the cylinder head, and then they've brought a new cam bridge. So the R8s and like the RS3s, it's a bridge and it does all of them at the same time. These are more like an old conventional cap. So you just have to be super careful. So if you damage cams or anything like that, and it's damaged the cylinder heads, they're all matched. So yeah, you've just got to keep everything the same. Crank bottom ends or engine bottom ends the same. So they're matched because of course the lower girdle on a crankcase is what holds your bearings, so it's all machined as one piece. So you've just got to be careful, like I wasn't then.
So would you mark these up? Or
no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't mark those because they're already marked.
Okay.
So you can see there. I don't know if you can see the numbers in them, and then they've got a little arrow pointing for direction. Because of course there's no workshop manuals for these, so you've got to be careful and pay attention. So we've stripped a couple now and we've just jotted everything down that we've noticed. So your first couple you take apart, you're sort of really paying attention to markings and what's where. So like the camshafts are marked, so that is inlet right bank, and that's got exhaust right bank on, so everything's sort of marked. So in theory you can't make mistakes, but
you just got to be very careful and
pay your attention.
Yeah.
Obviously things like the lifter sets on a brand new engine with brand new parts, it wouldn't matter, you could put those where you wanted. But on an engine that's done mileage, you obviously need to keep everything matched together. So obviously these lifters have worn to this end of the cam. So
you're saying this particular setup, which model would this be?
So this is a 650S head.
Okay.
650. So single injector, and then this 570 is very similar to this, but then when you get to like the 720, they've got their twin injector. So they've got 2 ports, so you can see the injector hole here, look. And on the 720s, we've got a pair of 720 heads somewhere. They've got 2 holes. So again, just get the cam out of the way. Put that one there as well. So in theory, everything is bloody stuck. You get like oil stiction. Very, very stiction-y. No, might have to have a little play with that. Needs a little knock, I think. They get stuck, like you saw when I was trying to get them cam caps off.
Yeah.
But you can see here, look. So these have got the DLC rockers we were talking about, or DLC lifters in. And you can see, look, where it's just sat on a shim. And then lifters on top, and then the cam wipes on top of this. So if you go and strip down the top end of my BMW, my motorbike, that's pretty much how these look. They've got finger followers. So it's like a really trick setup, whereas the Audis, the R8s, have got a hydraulic tappet, and then a roller rocker arm.
Right.
So this is like old school set the clearances with your shims. So I think in one of our other videos I showed the boxes of shims we've got for these. So we bought a load of shims. So yeah, it's makes it interesting, that's for sure. So you've then got to, when you build it all back up, you've got to measure up your clearances, put your cams in, measure your clearances. So it's a little bit more like a sort of a bike engine in that respect, because bikes still using shims. Yeah, Audi stuff is hydraulic tappet, so that's what takes up your free play, so to speak. these. I'm going to check what the underside looks like, because they're not coming out. Must just be oil sticking it, look. Oh, they have got little dowels. You see there, look? So it's got a little locating pin. Right, so it's not going to stick on those. Right, so we're just stuck on the dowels then. That's okay. I don't want to go forcing something and
Sure.
cause some damage, so we'll have a little, get a big hit and stick out and try it.
If in doubt, it would stick.
Pretty much, mate. Pretty much. Alright. What are we going to get in there with? Like that.
There she goes.
You can see, look. And then you've got the oil feed coming up through the head to pass up through the middle to lubricate the pins. So that's a shim. I think we had this last time. I don't think I've got a mic with a small enough diameter, to look at it. Will my ball mic fit in that hole? Because what you would do at this point is, might just work, mate, to be fair. You'd measure each shim as you took it out.
Yeah.
And then sort of jot down where you were. So you'd measure your clearances as you took it apart. And you jot down your, let's just measure this, it's 5 first. So you'd measure your clearances, then you'd take it apart. There we go, 0. Take it apart, and then you'd measure your shims, and then you know where you are then. Right, so if we say 2.770. That was in lap 4. 2.765. 64. I imagine they're in. Yeah. So if I get my shims. Because remember, we said when we got these out, they're numbered, like they're just numbered to 40.
Yeah.
So does that mean now they're 2.740? Or does it mean something else? I'm trying to understand how they've coded the shims, because it's not like a bike shim would have it written on it normally. So you'd say that's 3.015. So a 40 shim is 3.015 mil. So I don't know, mate. Do you know what I mean?
It's all numbers.
It is just all numbers. But that's essentially what we would do now for every position. I'd go through and measure every shim. So I know what every shim is in every location. So if you come in the top now, look, you can see the top of the retainer, and you can see the cotter pins, or whatever people call it, sat down on the valve. So now the weird thing here is, so normally I've got another pen, but
we need to get a darker pen for this.
we do need to get a darker pen, mate, don't we? I might have some in the office, to be fair.
We'll do what I did recently and use a Sharpie and then realise, it ain't coming off.
Quality. So that's how an Audi looks. So that's the spring, that's the spring, that's the valve, that's the retainer, and that's the cotter. So then what you would normally do is you'd measure installed height. So installed height is the difference between the top of the retainer and the top of the valve. Yeah?
Yep.
So that's how we would expect to see it. On the McLarens, the problem you've got is right, the retainers, the cotters sit down like this. The retainer's recessed and the tip of the valve is there. So in theory, that should be 0. Your installed height is 0. Then what we go and do is let me draw it again the same here. We'd release the spring, so spring sits like this. The valve doesn't move. The valve's in the same place, yeah? But now all of a sudden, your retainer is here.
Yeah.
So what we would normally do is, in the case of the Audi, we take the measurement from the top of the valve to top of the retainer. It's X, so that's your free length. And then when it's the other way round, with the Audi, you'd get another number and you'd add them together. So say, for example, you have 10 mil installed height. What that means is, between the free length and the installed height, you put 10 mil of load on the spring. Now why that's important is because you would take a spring, put it in your gauge, right? Now I'd add 10 mil of load to that spring. That tells me what the seat pressure is. So that's how much pressure is on the spring when it's sat on the seat. And then from there then, we can work out what our base circle is and then what our valve lift is, because we've got no rocker ratio.
Yeah.
So our base circle's 31.5 mil. And our lift is 38.5. So what did I say? 31.5 to 38.5. So on the cam lifts 7 mil. But what I need to figure out now, and we do that by putting a gauge on the valve, putting a DTI on the top of the valve and then turning the cam over, is how much that lifter changes the ratio of the valve actuation. Because I know, for example, on a V10 one, I've got it written down, but it's at 1.6. So if I've got 7 mil of lift total, I just multiply that by 1.6 to get my final number, and that tells me how much the valve. And then I can then go and figure out what my spring pressure is at max lift, and you can work out your increments because we gauge the springs out. So then when you want to go and fit aftermarket springs like these, are they actually any better? Get me?
I'm getting you. We're all good.
Get me? Get me?
Yeah, we're there.
So what I need to try and figure out is, So as we were saying there, now installed, that distance is 0.3 mil. So my valve is exposed above my retainer by 0.3 of a mil. So now what we'll do is we'll pop a valve, we'll pop a collet out, and then measure what the free length is.
Well, it's pretty involved then.
Thanks, mate. Sometimes I'm like talking and I'm confusing myself. So if you're confused at home, I'm really sorry. But does that make sense?
It makes sense, yeah.
Now, to a majority of people sat at home, it won't make a whole lot of difference. A couple of instances it would say make a difference. Some of these, right. If you took the head apart and you cleaned it and you put it back together, and say you just lapped the valves in, you wouldn't have to do anything if your clearances were right. So if your valve clearances were correct with it coming apart, and you just lapped the valves in, you put it back together, you wouldn't have to do anything. Where you would have to make adjustments is if you cut the seats. So if you cut the seats, you change that's your head. Yeah. New pen needed. If you'd like to donate to the pen cause, right? And a valve sits in the head like that, okay? And then there's your guide. So we call that valve height. So that's how much of the valve is exposed past the guide or past the head. So you can, if you're not changing your guides, then you can just do it if you're not changing your guide, you can do it past the guide. If you are changing your guides, then your datum's going to have to be the head. So you just need that fixed point. If I now go and cut my valve seats to change my valve angle, yeah, then I've recessed my valve into my head.
Yeah.
Now that gives me extra valve at the top of my head. Now that's important because what I've done is, if that's my spring, I've changed my free length. Sorry, I've changed my valve, my spring preload. So I've changed my installed height. Now I've taken by doing that, I've taken pressure off the spring. So my spring now has less preload for when it starts working. Now it's increments, but it still all makes a difference. The other thing you've got to consider is, with the valves you've got, you go and cut all the seats, you don't know where they were to start with. You could have all different valve heights. You could go down your head and have 16 valves, all at different heights. Now we've had this. I've had engines come apart from other places they've been done in the past, and they've cut 2 or 3 seats, and not all of them, and the valve heights are all different. The spring heights are all different. Because they've, say for example, had damage on one cylinder or had something happen on one cylinder, they've repaired that one cylinder and cut the seats, but then all the others are the same or original. So what they've done then is they've changed about their spring height. So just little things you've got to keep thinking about. But for the general, anything doesn't, it's the same on all cylinder heads, on all overhead valve engines anyway. It doesn't matter what you're doing, when you start any machining work, changes numbers, and you've got to understand what that changes. So for example, let me get this right now, skimming your head doesn't affect your squish. So your squish is where your piston meets your, where your piston comes up to meet your cylinder head. So you keep skimming, you skim, doesn't change your squish. Right, that's changed by your piston protrusion or your head gasket. What skimming your head does is brings your valves closer to your piston, so it changes your piston's to valve clearance. So you've always got to keep those things in mind, so when we make a change, we can go behind and measure. So you've seen me with pistons, I've got plasticine around here somewhere. So we'll fill the valve cutouts with plasticine, build the engine up, and then turn it over to measure what our valve clearance is with our springs properly installed. But we'll then also have a cylinder with soft springs in, with no plasticine, and we'll put a DTI gauge on and measure how much we can push the valve down at certain points to see what our spring clearance is. Now, where do I keep my soft springs? Because I'll show you in a minute. There you go. So we would use, depending on, them are 2 bike ones and this McLaren. So what we would do there, look, is I'd essentially use that instead of that. So when I put the engine together, we assemble it with a soft spring. So now when the head's assembled, I can move the valve with my fingers. It's enough tension to keep the valve seated, but not so much that I can't move it with a DTI with my fingers. And then that can tell me, we can then use that information to show me how much interference I've got.
Yeah.
Wow, that went from stripping a McLaren head to soft springs.
So, we've got a good 28 minutes there.
Is that 28 minutes already?
Already.
Cool, look at that. Chat for Britain.
Should we call that half time?
Cool. Yeah. Half time. Right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this new instalment of Rick Talks Crap.
The new refreshed 2022 version.
Yeah, that's it. Rick Talks More Crap.
Post-COVID.
Post-COVID. So, no. If you've got questions, then drop them in the comments. I try to answer everybody. And if I don't like what you're saying, I just delete it. It's fine. We haven't had any insults lately. Maybe people have cottoned onto it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll drop a few of my own.
Or my hair's got better and your camera work has got better. That could be the answer, mate.
Maybe it's just you wearing a hat.
That is it. That is the key, mate. It's actually 40 degrees in Swindon at the minute.
Yeah, yeah.
We're on the equator.
We're actually
Still
filming
wearing a
this in
hat.
the Bahamas.
Yeah, still wearing a hat.
Cool.
So,
all right, bud.
Hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, if you've got any questions or anything, then let us know in the comments below. And click subscribe button. Smash the subs button.
Yes.
And see you next Friday.
Yes, mate.
See you in 10 minutes.
Not next Tuesday.